Hey y'all, it's Bookishrealm and I'm back with another video. Today I wanted to do a video that has been on my mind just for the past maybe like a couple of weeks, and as you can see from the title of this video, I want to talk a little bit about how long we should stay on Booktube. And the question really is like, how long should I stay on Booktube? Like, at what point do we say, you know, enough is enough? And I don't think there's any really clear answer to this. Y'all know whenever I do these discussion videos, like, there is no like, I think, right or wrong answer. It's just an interesting way to generate conversation. I always say that. And so I was thinking about this in the context of like, when I am going to come to a point where I think it's time for me to leave Booktube, and I'm not there yet. But I think one of the key indicators of when it's time to quit Booktube is like when you stop enjoying doing what you're doing. I think we all go through phases of like, you know, aspects of our lives where we're like, you know, I just am overwhelmed. I have stuff going on in my real life, and not that this is not real life, but I have things going on in my personal life that it just is not a thing that I enjoy doing anymore. It stresses me out. It just is not something that I can see myself doing. I think whenever you get to that point with anything, whenever you have a hobby or something that you're really, really invested in, you know, I think that that is when you say, maybe I need to reconsider being on this platform. I think that definitely changes for those who do like Booktube like full time or consider this to be their job. I think that, you know, the consideration for how long you do this and when you stop doing it is going to be a little different, because then you're talking about like financial stability and whether, you know, you can technically walk away from it if it impacts your finances in a great way. For someone like me, it doesn't necessarily impact my finances in like a huge way. I always say that Booktube allows me to save up some additional funds, but you know, the way the economy looks right now in the United States and globally, you know, pennies will help at this point. But I think that it doesn't have a huge impact on my income to where I'm like, I have to do this in order to be able to live. I think that, you know, I do work a full-time job, which is close to 40 hours a week, sometimes more than that, which I probably shouldn't say that on camera. So my experience is going to be a little different. And I think, to be honest with you, like, how you look at this scenario, how you look at the situation, or how you view this entire perspective of, or you view this entire question of like, how long is too long on Booktube, or when do you know that you need to give it up? It's going to vary person by person. I think that there are some people that I've seen on Booktube that have been doing this for years. Like in 2024, I technically will have been in the community for 10 years. And so it's one of those things where I have to ask myself, like, is this something that I want to continue to do? Is it something that I'm passionate about? And, you know, will I have to continue to evolve? Because what I am doing now in terms of my channel, what people may like, it may not work 2-3 years from now. And also, I think one of the things that I always take into consideration is the sustainability of YouTube and how powerful YouTube may or may not be in the future. When you have things like Instagram Reels and TikTok and stuff, and people are looking for those quick videos, I think that it changes how people interact with YouTube. I think that you have now a generation coming through that, not necessarily I'm going to say that they're all about instant gratification, because I don't think that that's always fair, but I think that processing information has to happen at a quicker rate, where, like, you know, I make videos and I'm very long-winded. I know this. I talk a lot. A lot of my videos are well over 20 minutes, and that's not a trying to get the AdSense and stuff like that. Like, that's not what it's about. It's just that I just happen to talk a lot, and that's just how I function as a human. I'm like that in my personal life. I run my mouth a lot, so it's no surprise that I would do that on here. But I think that, you know, at some point people are not going to want to sit down and watch a 20-minute plus video. If they're looking for recommendations, they want them like rapid fire type recommendations, and which is why I think that some people see success on platforms like TikTok. And, you know, the way that the algorithm works on YouTube, it is a very difficult platform to break into, because it can become oversaturated very quickly when people are kind of doing the same things. And so I think that for me, me, the moment that I stop finding inspiration, the moment when I feel like, okay, you know, I don't think I'm necessarily bringing anything new to the table, I don't think I'm bringing anything new to the conversation, then it's time for me to reevaluate, like, what is my purpose here? What am I trying to do as a person that's a part of this community? How do I evolve and grow? And do I want to evolve and grow? And then thinking about, like, do I even need to be here any longer? So it's so many different components that I think you can look at, and it comes down to really much so an individual's kind of perception of their place. I think, you know, I have seen a lot of my favorite content creators that have been here, like, before I have been here, like, they have either significantly slowed down with their content, or they just don't make content anymore, and they've kind of phased out of doing Booktube. And that could be for a number of reasons. You know, for some people it has been like advancement in education, getting new jobs, and Booktube is just not the center of their world anymore. Or it could just be, you know, like, it's just not their passion anymore. I think it's okay for us to recognize too, in being part of this community, which is something that which we talked about a little bit more, is that your reading interest is going to fluctuate. We call ourselves, like, you know, like, oh, I'm in a reading slump, and for a lot of us that's like, you know, a month or a couple of months. But there are times, I think, when people literally fall out of love with reading, and this could be over a course of years. And so that's something to acknowledge too, where, like, you know, Booktube is one of those things where it's one of those platforms where it's like, if you're not reading, it's kind of hard to make content. Not saying that you have to do like a lot of reading. You have to be reading 30, 40 books to make content, but you have to read something, I think, to a certain degree to really make content. And it's harder, not saying that it can't be done, because I've seen people who, like, you know, I'm in a reading slump, but I'm going to continue to put out content, like doing book recommendations or whatever. I just think sometimes it's a little bit harder to bring newer stuff to the table because you're not exploring new material. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like you have to read to some degree to kind of bring some content to the table, some newer content to the table. So, you know, when you go through those periods of where your reading may change, whether that's circumstances in your life, whether that is, you know, you have something just come up and it's like, you know, reading is just not a priority anymore, then it will change how you interact with this community. But I think one of the key things here is that, like, you can't necessarily like set a time frame on it. I think it comes down to your individual gut feeling. Like, I think as my daughter begins to get older, as I continue to move forward in my career, I really am going to have to reevaluate, like, what I want to do here in the Booktube community. And a lot of it too has to deal with, for me personally, you know, what I want to do in the long run. Like, Booktube is, for me, it's never going to be a full-time gig. It can't be. I literally, I don't have the capacity to do it, and the way that my finances work, YouTube couldn't sustain me. Not being a single parent, like, there's no way that Booktube, I would literally have to explode on the internet with lots and lots of followers, with high views, in order to be able to sustain that. And I don't trust that all the time, because that stuff is never 100% consistent. And with a child and not having an additional source of income with another human coming into my house, it's kind of like, I don't want to take that risk. It is a risk to take, and with me having a minor, that's kind of like a no-go for me. But I think that, you know, I know that it's never going to be an end goal for me to be like this huge booktuber that's going to make a lot of money. I'm never going to make a career out of it. I knew that going into it, I was never going to make a career out of it. I'm surprised that I'm at where I'm at right now. But I think that understanding, like, what my future holds, knowing that this is not going to be something that I'm going to do for forever. And it's kind of sad to say that, because it's like something that I'm passionate about. Like, I love interacting with y'all. I love talking about books. I love giving recommendations. I love having these discussions. I love just talking about books. Like, books is what I do. It is my life. Like, literally, outside of this, I deal with books all day long. So it really is my life, and it is something that I'm passionate about, and it doesn't like consume me in like a negative way. But I think that the shelf life of me being here is not going to be forever. It's not going to be, you know, 20 years from now, I'm going to be sitting here in front of a camera doing the same thing. It's for me, it's not realistic to make those assumptions. I think that my end goal, which I've always said, is that I would love to one day, when life settles down a little bit and things are not so super chaotic for me, I would love to, do professional reviewing. And there are avenues that I could do that, especially because of librarianship. There are a couple of avenues I can take to do that, but right now I just don't have the time to do it. So I'm hoping that one day, when life kind of like eases up for me a little bit and things are not so chaotic, that I could do that. But that, knowing something like that and having that planning ahead of time, I know that I don't have longevity here. And so I think another interesting avenue that this whole conversation could take is like, does that make me put less effort and energy into my channel? And not really. I think that I am more flexible with it because I know that A, I'm not going to have longevity. B, the expectation is for this not to be a substantial source of income for the rest of my life. Like, I have a little bit more flexibility maybe than some people, where like I know that this is not my end goal. This is not my end game. So it doesn't mean that I put in less effort, but I'm more lenient on myself. Like, if I plan to have 3 videos out in a week and it ends up being one, like I'm like, well, oh well, it was 1 video this week. Like, that's not my problem. I mean, it is my problem, but it's like, I'm not so pressed about it and I'm not so stressed out about it, because of the fact that I know that it's not everything to me. And I'm not saying those who are like very structured and who, they put out their 2-3 videos a week and they stick with that. Like, I'm not saying that like this is all that they have in the world. That's not true. I just think that their relationship with the community, with their content, is different than mine, which is why I keep going back to saying, like, when is it time to quit Booktube is such a personalized type of thing. And I know that there are going to be people who are like, like, you should stay here forever. And it's like, I can't stay here forever. I think I will always attempt to have some sort of internet presence when it comes to books, because I like talking about books with people, especially as a person who just doesn't have a lot of people in her life that read as much as I do. Like, that's why I gravitate towards y'all so much. And I think for me, that's going to be the hardest thing to let go of, is the community. And Booktube has its issues, just like any other community has its issues. But I know for me, coming to grips with the fact that this is a community that I have come to, fight with and love and struggle with and care about and want to curse out and want to be done with, like, all of the emotions, kind of like familial. Like, I don't always like y'all, but I do love you. It's like that type of relationship. And so I think for me, that will always be the hardest thing for me to let go of. And that is going to be a big factor for me when I do decide. And a huge piece of me right now is kind of like, 5 years. I feel like I have maybe 5 years worth of content left in me, and if that, maybe I should be like 3 to 5 years is like as much as I have left to give, I think. And I don't know if I can go past that point, because my daughter will be in elementary school at that point, and I may want to explore bookish content in a different way. TikTok just is not the thing for me. I think people do great with TikTok. I just don't have the energy to freaking do TikTok. I don't. I don't have the energy to do it. I tried and I'm like, oh, this is cool. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm not even on TikTok like that, to be honest with you. This is the part of me that I feel like it's getting old. No, let the kids have it, because this is for y'all. This is, let y'all can have that. It's not for me. I am just not into it. I literally, not only do I not make book talk videos, I don't watch book talk, and it's nothing really against Book Talk. I mean, I have thoughts and opinions about Book Talk, but it's just not my platform. And so, you know, I had thought a long time about maybe whenever I eased up off of, you know, YouTube, that I would really throw myself into Instagram. And, you know, I had started softly like doing, you know, a couple of recommendation posts, which have been the most successful posts that I have ever had on my Instagram. And so I think that is an area where I would want to kind of throw myself into, as opposed to, you know, trying to be here for 15, 20, 30 years from now. Like, it's just not going to happen. And it's such a hard thing to kind of face. And it's been something that I've really just thought about, I think, because, and maybe I should tell you exactly how this kind of came about. Just a short sidebar, and then, you know, we'll wrap this. I'm not trying to be here for 30 minutes, but I had been talking to my dad about like what I wanted my future to look like in the next 5 years, like career wise, and, you know, living situation, and, you know, thinking about my daughter in 5 years, like what she's going to be doing in terms of like where I want to put her in school, whether we want to do public school, charter school, like, you know, thinking about things like that. It really puts a lot of different aspects of your life into perspective. And, you know, YouTube did come up as part of that, and it is something that I love. It's something that my parents know that I love. As you can see, like, my family has gotten more comfortable like appearing on camera lately, and so I think that they realize how passionate I am about it and how much I adore and love it. But, you know, having those goals and realistically like setting those expectations to realize that at the end of the day, I can't be here for forever. So, you know, I want to challenge us to kind of think about like, you know, when is it time to quit Booktube? And, you know, if you're not a creator, still kind of give an answer and your perspective and share, because I like hearing things from a viewer perspective, because I think that viewers see things that we as creators don't really notice, and sometimes viewers can pick up on when we just no longer want to really be a part of this community. And I think a lot of times viewers call when booktubers need to leave before booktubers realize that they need to leave. And I don't think it's always meant in a very like negative or a very like degrading type of thing. I think that it is like, I've been watching you, I've been a part of your community, and I see that you're not passionate about this, and you need to really consider whether it's even healthy for you to be here anymore. And, you know, are you taking care of yourself mentally and spiritually and physically when you are doing something that you clearly don't want to do anymore? So I always think that that's like super and you know, interesting. So even if you're a viewer, I want you to share your thoughts. If you're another creator, like, do you see a point in which you know, are going to leave Booktube, or do you just going to kind of go with the flow? Like, let me know in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. I don't know why I couldn't get notifications out just now. Hit the bell for notifications, and I'll be back with another video soon.